What if the parts of you that you're most afraid to show are the map to your next chapter? As we close out the year, I want to ask you something real. What uncomfortable truth has been trying to get your attention? You know which one. The one that keeps handing your ass to you every time you do it. Every time you have to repeat that lesson. Every time you seem to get yourself in that same situation. That one that you keep avoiding. That thing, whatever it is the doorway to the next step, the next phase, the next big change that you have to make. What if clarity doesn't come from just thinking harder? What if it comes from being more honest with yourself? Today we're exploring the power of vulnerability to guide your next steps. So I was just interviewed, and it's a publication that has interviewed me before, but this time the questions, they really hit hard. They kind of invited you to be pretty vulnerable and talk about past wounds and things you had to overcome and all of that. And I just felt like I was feeling in the mood to be vulnerable in my answers, and I felt really good about it after. And then I was thinking about how, vulnerability to have self awareness and recognize what's going on around you in your life, that really is the key to beginning real big change. We're very uncomfortable being vulnerable, right? Vulnerability is seen as weakness in so many ways. But what if I told you that that is furthest from the truth? Vulnerability isn't weakness, it's an internal compass trying to point you in the right direction. When you're able to examine your own vulnerabilities and your triggers, the things that are upsetting you that expose a vulnerability, whatever it may be, whenever you're able to examine that from a more neutral stance and understand it, and then take that and transform it into your next steps, you're going to be able to come at it from a wiser standpoint and make better decisions. So, in the spirit of this end of year energy, what is a time to shed? Whatever's been cracking you open lately or this year is pointing you towards alignment. You just have to learn to listen to it and adjust accordingly. Instead of demanding clarity from the universe for the new year, which is great, listen to what your vulnerability is already telling you about where you're at. So, how do we do that? Really, it's about getting to the root of some of your triggers. Triggers are stressful, they can be embarrassing when you just have a really off day and the wrong thing sets you off. But they are data, they're not defects. They tend to show where previous unmet needs or old stories that are still repeating themselves in your life are just being unmet. They're being unaddressed. Being honest about what makes you sensitive, what makes you a bit touchy, nobody should push that button because you really don't like it when that happens. It reveals what you've been avoiding, suppressing, or carrying alone and not really seeking the help you need for. Maybe you need to better understand your past and seek therapy or work through your traumas using some healing modality. There are tons out there. A lot of people are doing breath and body based healing too. There's a bunch of different ways you can do it, whatever you align with. It's important to think about the past and what sensitivities tend to come up that seem to be reflective of that past. Your traumas are usually the thing that trigger you the most. Maybe you've been repeating patterns that are unhelpful, and that can be a story that you told yourself or that you learned that was imprinted in you from an early age. Those are all things that heavily contribute to your more irrational sensitivities, where something happens and it triggers you, or something happens and it validates this negative self-belief that you have and kind of puts you further down, and but also gives you the excuse to keep telling yourself that story, right? Well, that's not the way you need to do it moving forward. It can be better. The places that you don't believe in yourself are the places that you don't really feel safe being seen. Maybe you have a business, but you don't like being at the forefront of your business. You kind of like to hide behind the scenes and just do the thing that you're good at, right? But the business is about you. I had to learn this lesson myself. I'm very good at what I do. I know this. I feel confident in that. But I tend to make my business more about everybody else. The higher human isn't about me, it's about everybody that I'm helping. And it is. But it's my contribution to the business is that I understand all these things that are going on in the world and what's going on in our society and just in general how people function and how what they need to do to make actual tangible change in their life. But I don't like being seen. I don't like being at the forefront. I don't like talking to this camera, believe it or not. But, this is the result of a lot of work and getting vulnerable with myself and saying, what is it that I'm really uncomfortable with? I struggle to be seen. That is my struggle. And with that, fear of being seen, you tend to be almost humble to the point of being uncomfortable about being complimented or taking credit for things that you've accomplished. It might stop you from wanting to be a public figure and speak on a topic that you're actually really passionate about and very knowledgeable on. Maybe you get really triggered if you feel any sort of rejection or neglected. And that's usually a result of a time you felt that way as a young child or something like that. Sometimes you're afraid to be seen because actually being seen in a traumatic, tumultuous childhood family situation. Adults that grew up as children in homes like that, they tended to be what they call like eggshell children. You kind of walked on eggshells to avoid conflict or confrontation with like your parent or whoever was around that was like the person or the people that were intimidating and not energy that you wanted to surround yourself with as a young person. Those themes carry into your adult life very much so. If you keep missing those cues to tell you that like this is something that I haven't quite addressed and I haven't really reframed the way I think about myself in these situations where it is safe to be seen now. You're an adult and you can live your whole life. Believe it or not, a lot of adults are still learning those lessons. And then of course is the big one, the fear of failure. Maybe if you failed as a kid and you had a parent or a guardian, whoever, that kind of put you down in the face of failure rather than, allowing failure to happen and allowing you to understand that you don't always win and that's okay. But the point of losing and that pain of losing is to get up again and try harder and learn more. There are always teachable moments in losses, in sports or whatever you're passionate about. A lot of people grow up in homes where the people around them aren't very supportive, don't really care or even, attempt to support you or may even put you down. You're not encouraged to take chances in homes like that sometimes, and teaches you that frame of thinking from a very young age. But the truth is, in those situations, the people that are doing that, they're often people who are projecting their failure to take chances in their life and, subconsciously kind of putting you down because they don't want to see somebody do something that they weren't willing to do, or they just don't believe it's possible for them, and therefore, how could it be possible for you? You don't need to tell yourself that story just because someone else has told themselves that story and is now trying to tell you that story. You get to make up your own. Isn't that great? It's very sad when you kind of come to that realization that some people are, they seem like they're putting others down and stuff, and really they're projecting their own perception of fear and failure. So how do you identify the fear of failure? Pretty simple in some cases. Do you come up with an exciting idea and then pretty quickly talk yourself out of it because you feel like I'll never be able to pull that off? You just feel like, why would I try? Because I'm probably not going to make it. Or, you get a certain ways in, you might actually begin the project. You might get into the thing. And then a certain ways in, you give up because you've hit your first couple roadblocks and it feels like failure to you. So you're like, oh, I can't take any more pain. Like, stop the bleeding. I would just rather quit this now and make up an excuse, say this thing happened that prevented me from doing it and never continue, never turn that page, right? Never see that chapter through. So many of us have done that with one thing or another. Something important that I feel like a lot of people don't talk about is the fear of success. What does that mean? Well, it's when things are actually starting to work out for you, but you get in your head because you don't feel like you deserve said thing. Subconsciously, of course, sometimes this is not like, a conscious conversation you're having with yourself, but you get it in your head that, you don't deserve said thing, or you feel like you don't know what to do with success because you feel like, well, what if I can't ultimately continue that success? And a lot of people don't even know they're doing it until it's too late. self-sabotage. That little, I like to call it self-sabotage troll, comes out and, you know, swallows up the progress you were making, screws things up with that client, doesn't call that opportunity back, doesn't take that meeting that they should take, blows off an important meeting, whatever. I find that this often happens when somebody actually has started doing some work on themselves, but there's still some things that they've just not quite gotten through. They just feel like I can't possibly be good enough to make this happen, you know. And they find a way to screw it up sometimes. Doesn't mean that you can't build back, by the way. Doesn't mean that just because this didn't work out and you maybe screwed it up a little. You screw things up all the time. We all screw things up all the time. That's literally life, man. Don't be afraid to screw things up. If you screw things up, cool. Teachable moments, always. Take what is important from that lesson. There's always a lesson. The biggest lesson should be that story that you told yourself about whether you can't make it or you're starting to make it but you don't deserve it. That story's not true, and it's time to tell yourself a new one and make it happen. Believe it or not, naming a fear out loud, observing it in a certain way, really helps you move on from it. It diffuses the power and gives your nervous system a clue that you're the one in control now. So, observing a fear, naming it out loud, acknowledging it, being able to speak about it. Then, now that you've recognized it, it's time to reframe it. Hey there, what's up? My name's Ashley. I'm a life coach, and I like to help people who are going through big life changes, spiritual awakenings, and trying to find their purpose. So whether you're just burnt out, you're going through a massive spiritual thing and you're trying to traverse the dimensions, or you're really trying to find your purpose and live a better life overall. Whatever the case may be, there's tons of content here for you, and I make new videos every week. So hit like, hit subscribe, and join along for the fun. Reframe it with how you're changing it. And don't use the word try. Finish this sentence. The reason I don't go after what I want is because blank. And you can say it out loud, make a voice note, write it somewhere and put it up where you're going to see it a lot. That's important. And then complete that statement with the deeper truth is blank. Getting to the root of that problem. Like, what is the source of that belief? If you notice those two statements, one is about the fear, the other is about clarity. So notice the shift from the first statement, the real reason, the fear, that shift from fear to the second statement in clarity, the deeper truth is blank. Now reframe that by saying, I am now changing by blank, whatever you have to do, whatever the next step is. Like I said, say it out loud, make it a mantra maybe. That'd be really great. Add it to a couple of short meditations. That would be awesome. Voice note or write it somewhere. Write it somewhere where you're going to see it a lot, like the mirror or something like that. Some people like to say things like this aloud to themselves in the mirror. I know that freaks some people out, so you don't have to do that. But say it out loud to yourself or, like I said, internal mantra type of thing. Another area we tend to struggle with vulnerability, relationships. Oh my gosh. Whether it's friendships, family especially, or partners. You can't create aligned relationships without vulnerability. If you're hiding the most tender spots of yourself, how can anyone really connect with you? You can't build a long-standing marriage on surface-level conversations. At some point, especially with significant others, they have to know who the real you is. Better from the beginning than not at all, or not until late in the game. You have to be able to voice the things you like most about your partner. Voice your fondness for someone you love. And especially, being vulnerable by sharing your struggles, sharing your past, sharing the things, the good, the bad, the ugly, the things that make you you. Vulnerability isn't oversharing. It's sharing a truth that aligns with your values and supports your ability to connect with others. And a lot of people say, well, I don't want to just dump all this, dump all my stuff, my baggage on my partner, my friend, whoever. There's a difference between emotional or trauma dumping on the people you love versus sharing your truth and sharing your heart with them. The difference is sharing those things when you've come to a place where you've done some work on it and you've done a little healing in that regard. It's important to ask yourself, are you using your friend, your family member, your significant other as your therapist and complaining about all the stuff that has happened or is happening, but not really doing much about it? The key difference is, are you doing something about it? Because even the people that love you the most, they do get tired of hearing you complain about the same thing over and over, particularly when you've done literally nothing to change anything about it, or to get away from that terrible partner you're complaining about, or to seek therapy or do some healing on something that has really been bothering you. People love to be there for you, but they just don't want to be dumped on, because how can they offer help to someone who isn't trying to help themselves? If you're not really doing the work and you're just complaining about it all the time, what can that person offer you? They're not a licensed professional. They haven't dedicated their life to healing others, probably. So, what can they really do to help you past a certain point, past just listening? But again, listening to the same thing over and over with no change, with no action, that gets tiring for people. I'm sure it gets tiring for you when others do it to you too. So, understanding the difference is important. But on the flip side of that, being able to share your past struggles with the people around you, what you're going through, but in a balanced and healthy way where you're not expecting them to solve the problem for you. You're working on it. Maybe you seek some advice, but in a way that you're not hammering them and demanding it. You're just having a heart to heart with someone. I think you understand, I hope, the difference energetically. The right partners, the right people, the right loved ones in your life, they'll be honored to hear your story and understand things about you better when you share, and hold space for you when you need it. Those types of people will be impressed by your strength and resolve to work through the issues. And people will be happy to help you with a challenge if you share. And also, when you are vulnerable and you open yourself up, it invites others to do the same. So sometimes when you want others to open up to you, you just have to have the courage to open up to them first. And they don't have to meet you in the middle, but often people do. It gives them the courage to. Doing that work outside of the relationship allows you to lean on each other because you're healthy and balanced. So this holiday season, choose one honest thing. Choose one relationship. Share one thing. Maybe a need, a boundary, an appreciation, or a truth. Keep it simple and heart-led. See what happens. See how the relationship shifts when you show up authentically. Vulnerability exposes your inner landscape, your limits, your desires, and your soul level needs. But you can't change what you're unwilling to see. You can't keep repeating patterns or keep getting re-triggered by the same thing over and over without change. If you're unwilling to see what keeps showing up, it's going to be a lot harder to make changes. Vulnerability gives you the power to hear your intuition more clearly because you're kind of getting rid of the emotional noise. You're getting down to the heart of the matter. So how do we harness that vulnerability for change in the new year? It's that time of year again when we're thinking about next year, we're trying to make plans, we're trying to figure out what about us needs to change. This is where it starts. Whatever keeps repeating is what needs to be released or redirected. I don't think the new year is asking for you to develop a whole new personality, but I do think it is asking you to drop the masks that are too heavy to carry around. Change doesn't exactly start with a plan. It really starts by telling yourself the truth. So let's come up with 3 vulnerable commitments for the end of the year. Write out 1 truth you're no longer hiding from yourself. 2. Write 1 thing you're ready to release because it no longer serves you. It keeps you small. And 3rd, write 1 step you're willing to take, even if you don't feel ready. The truth is, you never really feel ready. You just have to do it. So write those 3 things down and put them somewhere that you can see them all the time. January 1st is just days away. As you walk into the new year, don't ask, who should I become? Ask, what truth am I finally willing to honor? Your next chapter begins when you stop hiding. See you all in 2026.